Record. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for taking the time out of your Friday to join us today. My name is Nicole Granicke. My pronouns are she, her. I am the Chief of Staff in the 48th Ward Aldermanic Office. And I'm thrilled that you're here with us today or watching this video afterwards. And we have a great lineup of presenters for you. And we're going to learn about two incredible programs to get involved with housing new arrivals in our community. We've got the ASERAP program and the Sanctuary Working Group, and we're going to hear from presenters who administer these programs and also from landlords who are participating in these programs. So we've got about 30 minutes of presentation planned, and then we'll leave time at the end for Q&A. Can folks give me a thumbs up if they can see my slide? All right. So this is our lineup for today. I'm going to hand it over to Alderwoman Manaa-Hoppenworth to kick us off. Then we're first going to hear about the ASERAP program. Afterwards, we'll hear from Sanctuary Working Group about their program. There'll be information about how to get involved in both of these programs, and then a Q&A at the end. So without further ado, let me hand it over to Alderwoman Manaa-Hoppenworth.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Nicole, for continuing these conversations, especially about how the 48th Ward can lead in this moment. And I want to thank especially the guests who have come on to this call who will present to us today, including many who actually live in the ward, which I'm so glad to hear. So thank you, Rodrigo, for coming and all the work that you have done around housing, especially during the pandemic, to make sure that people have what they need, and then moving on towards this moment that we're in. And Nicole, also, Catholic Charities has been so essential to us in the 48th Ward at the Broadway Armory and beyond in Chicago, and Chris and Sarah, who has been convening as a volunteer of faith leaders to figure out ways that we can help new arrivals find independence, especially here in our neighborhoods. And again, thank you all for being here. I look forward to this conversation and working together. I want to give a very special thank you to the landlords who are coming also to share your experience in the last year. We have some updates about what's going on in the Armory. As you know, we've had this temporary shelter here since August, and we have been able to do things in the community along with our partners, public libraries, public schools, private schools, to bring the families not only in the shelter together to find recreation and healing in this very hard moment in their lives, but also to introduce them to the community. And so I'm very grateful for all the work that you've done to help us in that way. We have some hard numbers here to share, including the fact that we have had 350 individuals, family members in our shelter is just a reflection of the numbers of people that have been coming to our police districts and living there until we can place them in temporary shelters so that we can move them through the system. The fact that the numbers continue to be stable at 350 is not really an indication of the progress that we've made, because we have seen movement, especially in the last few weeks, and I'm really glad to see that. So over 38 leases have been signed via the ASERAP program, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program that the state has been helping with. 18 households have moved into permanent housing. All residents have found housing outside of the community, which is not our ideal. We would love for families to be able to envision that they could enroll their kids into our public schools and stay, actually settle here. 50 plus students have been enrolled at Swift and are staying at the Broadway Army Shelter. And we have been not only working at the city, state, county, and federal levels for all of the things that they need, including healthcare and supportive services, but we really want to stress that people want to be independent. They want to work. And so we're grateful that the Biden administration has moved along the opportunity for us to do clinics so that we can get 11,000 work permits for residents staying in our shelters and work authorization events that are going to happen now through February 9th. So with that, I just want to say again, thank you, all of you, for presenting and for continuing to engage with us in the 48th Ward and also with every level of government that represents you. So with that, I will move it to Nicole. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Alderwoman. I'm going to pass the mic over to Rodrigo Carrillo from IDHS. Thank you for being here, Rodrigo. Just let me know, tell me when to click.
Sure thing. So thank you so much, everyone, Alderwoman, for having me here as resident of the 48th Ward. So proud that we are hosting families in their time of need, and then also partnering them with their new journey, and really, really proud of living in the state that we can offer this type of assistance for everyone. My name is Rodrigo Carrillo, Associate Secretary of Program Operations and Emergency Management. Basically, what we are doing at the Department of Human Services are several things, but I'm going to really focus on ASERAP, the Asylum Seeker Emergency Rental Assistance Plan. I know that there are current pilot workshops that we are working on with certain shelters, with certain individuals, to ensure that we can do like a TPS, employment authorization application for them. But there are certain populations that apply for TPS, as you see listed here. TPS stands for Temporary Protected Status, and that usually comes with the ability to apply for a work permit. I also want to note that folks are also able to apply if eligible for asylum seeking refuge, and that also allows you to apply for a work employment authorization and work permit after a certain number of days after application. Next slide, please. So what is the Asylum Seeker Emergency Rental Assistance Plan, also known as ASERAP? ASERAP was launched in December 5th in 2022, and we really focused on relocating those that were coming into the state hotel shelters. ASERAP is a rental assistance program that provided a certain number of months of rental assistance, up to 3 months, plus a move-in fee for eligible applications. Next slide, please. IDA is our big partner and our back office collaborator, along with about 19 housing stability service providers that we have contracted to help us with these applications. They maintain communication with IDA, who oversees the application approval process and will help applicants and gather all the required documentation. They respond in a timely manner, and a good application submitted through IDA can take anywhere from 2 to 5 business days for approval. Next slide. So basically, the process at the shelter is a rental application is provided to IDA. Once a contract has been signed, once Catholic Charities has done their work, if it's a fast track application, then some of the city shelter providers will also help us with that. Some housing stability service providers do help with housing locations. They also do some work with some basic needs, but we also have ICER representatives on site, which are community-based organizations that provide some other basic needs and help apply for state services, such as the medical card or such as VTTC and other forms of resources. After we match housing units and available with families, we go ahead and submit an application. These units can be anywhere in the state of Illinois, Next slide. Once they're on site, we help them apply with the process. We help them do the application through the portal. The process is reviewed through IDA in the back end, can take 48 hours for approval. Payments are made directly to landlords. And if a landlord doesn't wish to participate, payments can be made directly to family members for an additional review. Although we really focus on trying to make payments directly to landlords, as it's easier that way. We allow additional time for payment delivery as we send those checks via 2-day mail. And all approved applications will cover up to 3 months plus a move-in fee. Move out and community integration will be coordinated by shelter sites and leads and community-based organizations. Next slide. The application documents are as follows. It's a lease. It's a lease or a lease attestation. We need some form of identification from tenants. That could be their city key ID or any border documentation. Any identification or proof of LLC from the landlord, proof of ownership, and the lease or lease attestation signed. Next slide. Sorry. So basically, those are the documents that are needed. I want to say that we also partner with Catholic Charities, which you'll know more about what they do. But we also partner with an agency called New Life. New Life also gives a basic package of furniture for those that are moving into their units, so they can start off in their new journey in a way where they're comforted with some items that we provide. ASERAP was designed last year with 2,000-ish folks in mind. Today, we have over 16,000 individuals at the city shelters. So we want to just highlight that last year I had the privilege with some colleagues here to work at the shelters, at the hotel shelters with operations. What we did was we started with 4 hotels and ended up with 11. We had over 2,000 individuals and over 900 families. And in 4 months, after designing ASERAP and launching it, we were able to successfully house all 900 families in 4 months. And it was quite an accomplishment on everyone's part. Just want to pause there.
Thanks, Rodrigo. So I'm Nicole Musitianu, and I'm with Catholic Charities. And as Rodrigo mentioned, Catholic Charities is contracted with DHS. And our role in the process is to assist folks with housing. So since December of 2022, we've connected more than 3,000 households to leases. And we've increased our rate of obtaining leases to over 500 new leases every month. So what is the process for folks, for residents to be connected to the ASERAP funding, and what assistance are they getting? A resident meets with a Catholic Charities worker on site at the shelter, and they're completing a housing needs assessment. So we're talking through what the family needs, where are locations that they want to get to in the city, where do their kids go to school, where are places that they frequently visit. We're looking at transportation, ways to move around the city. And we're sitting down and then thinking through and looking through available units in those areas. Throughout this process, I think something that we've just been overwhelmed with is the number of citizens in this city who care about being a welcoming city. And so we have many landlords who have outreached to us, both they've been routed to us through the state, they've been routed to us through the city. We have a landlord interest form. And I think since August, we've had 515 landlords reach out to ask how they can participate in this. And at the end of the slide deck, you'll have a link to that. So you're welcome to also reach out. But we have a team of housing locators. When a landlord reaches out, they're meeting with a landlord, talking about their units. And then we're doing physical and virtual walkthroughs. And when that location or when that unit is available, we've done the walkthrough, then we're connecting that to our residents. And so our caseworkers are also assisting with getting that signed lease or signed lease attestation. Once a lease is signed, then we pass it off to our partners at IDA. So that's the HSS partners that Rodrigo mentioned that are also at the shelter, and they assist the resident with completing the ASERAP rental application. Our worker is monitoring that application through. Once that application is approved, We are then assisting with utility setup, and New Life, who is an exceptional partner, and they're also contracted with DHS. We then provide a housing referral, or a furniture referral, so that New Life then delivers the furniture to the family. We also provide post-move support. So there are situations where maybe there are challenges between the landlord and the tenant. Maybe, a family has had new family members arrive and they want to stay at the apartment, and they're not on the lease. Those are things that we help. Those are issues that we help to mitigate between the landlord and the households. We're really grateful, when issues, we're grateful for the support that DHS and IDA also provide in that. And then we have two of our landlords who are participating today. So first, if you want to switch the slide, Nicole, the first landlord we have is Zeke Lopez, and I'll let Zeke.
Hello?
Yeah. Hi, Zeke. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes. It's Zeke Lopez with American Veteran Solutions, LLC. We're a veteran-owned company. And yes, our experience with the ASERAP program has been very well. We started back in the first batch of clients of asylum seekers in January, February. And we just completed our first batch of 6 months completion. And that was a challenge. I wanted to share that earlier today, that the overall program has been very successful. The challenge was what happens after 6 months. And what we found is that the property owners wanted some more credibility of what happens after. How do we keep them? How do they're no longer on the program. We have to treat them like regular people who would seek renting. And one of the things was pay stubs and bank statements, which helped from the Catholic Charities case managers through those 6 months, help the clients seek their asylum program, keep their appointments, get their TIN numbers, get their asylum program, getting bank accounts. Because they did all that work prior, it helps us to help the owner to keep them. And we had the leases renewed, which they stayed, and which we're very happy. We had locations in Inglewood, locations in Sauk Village, and we also have a location in DeKalb, but that hasn't been a high interest only because it's further than most people want. But overall, that transition for all the families has been very successful for us.
Thanks so much, Zeke. And another landlord we have who's participating is Greg War. Greg, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, how are you? My name is Greg War. I have a 31-unit apartment building in Chicago. You want me to just kind of roll with it, or did you want to ask me a question?
No, go ahead. Tell us about your experience. Okay.
Yeah. So my experience is a little bit briefer than the gentleman before me. I think I got in touch with Catholic Charities probably the last week of October, and I was really impressed with how quick they moved. I've dealt with some programs in the city that really kind of the communication is very difficult going through, but everything moves so smoothly within about 2 weeks, a little bit more, 2.5 weeks of initial contact with Catholic Charities. We had the first tenant in, or they had the check in our hand, and then they moved in shortly thereafter. So everything's been going well. We have 3 more contracts on our units through the fast track program, but we're still working with Catholic Charities, going through everything, and everything looking good. Just real quick, one of the interesting things was, really kind of seeing the people when the first contract came through, if you don't mind me just adding a little bit to this. It was like, wow, we're really helping people, because you watch TV and you see the people coming across the border, and it was like, it wasn't until being in the program, getting that first contract, it's like, these people are going to be moving into my place. We're literally probably walking 10, 20, 100 miles, and now they're here, and it really felt good to help them. I've really felt, like, hey, these people are in shelters. How scared must they be? How much nervous would they be having their family here? So glad to be a part of it. I'm an old Catholic school boy, so glad to be with Catholic Charities. Hope that didn't run too long.
Thanks so much, Greg. And Nicole, passing it back to you.
Thank you, Rodrigo, Nicole, Zeke, and Greg. I hope you all stick around because I'm sure there'll be questions, especially for our landlords. Thanks for being here. We are going to shift gears to another program, another option for landlords. So we've been talking about the ASERAP program, which is through the state of Illinois. And now we're going to be talking about the Sanctuary Working Group, who's also been working with landlords and new arrivals. And I'm going to pass it over to Chris.
Thank you, Nicole. Next slide. So the Sanctuary Working Group is a very different kind of out-of-the-box model. We do not get any state or city or federal funding. We are a collective that started in March of 2020 because we realized that with COVID, getting people out of detention centers was more important than ever. So it is just adding to what Lenny said, we are faith-based organizations, but we're also nonprofits. We grew from originally about 6 groups. We have 44 entities now. We meet every Monday, and those entities represent huge nonprofits like Refugee One's Asylum Program, World Relief, United African Organization, as well as faith-based organizations and communities. We have been providing since March of 2020 support for over 400 people. Most of those are families. Some of them are in the shelter. Some of them have directly come from police stations. But because we were doing this work well before the buses started arriving, people are in faith communities living, but they're also in people's homes. And we have moved towards gaining a lot of fundraising and focus on getting people into apartments so that they have more sustainable independence. With that said, we just were granted a MacArthur grant. We are an all-volunteer organization, so we are very grassroots. But now we are hiring 4 positions, and we are going to be doing that within the month of December, and money for rent. So we can pay 6 to 12 months of rent. We have the Community Renewal Society, who has dedicated matching 3 apartments for 6 months of rent to our 6 months of rent. We have the Walder Foundation, who has given us funding for matching rent. So we are working towards getting people into affordable housing all over the city. We'd love to have some in the 48th Ward as well. And with that said, I would like to pass it to somebody, a landlord who is a very different model, who has worked with the Sanctuary Working Group. So I'm going to pass it to Joe.
Hi, I'm Joe, and I'm not your typical landlord. I'm a senior on a fixed income, and I decided to buy a small condo, which actually happens to be in the 48th Ward. And I was talking to a friend, and she's told me about this organization which could help pay the rent if I was willing to take on a refugee. So a woman and her daughter from Honduras ended up moving in. This was about a year ago. But the church they were working with could only afford to pay 8 months of rent. So they moved out in the summer, and then the Sanctuary Working Group brought a man from Somalia who is living there now. And it's a church that's able to let him stay for as long as he needs. I don't know how long that'll be. Eventually, he has a big family back in Somalia, so eventually he'll have to move once he gets them over here into a bigger place. But it's been a really good experience for me. You know, no problems, easy. The rent is paid, and you know, again, I feel good about helping people.
Thank you, Joe. And I would just add to that. So she referred to a church that's supporting the rent for the Somalian man. That's one of the churches that's part of the Sanctuary Working Group. So we also have individual communities that are supporting rent for individuals and families. We have a different model. So out of the Sanctuary Working Group came the Faith Communities Initiative, which Emily, who's on this call, is the program manager for. And out of the Faith Communities, which is part of the Sanctuary Working Group, There is another person who is in real estate, but also part of a faith community who has another model. So I pass it on to David.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me join you here. And yeah, I add a little bit of a different perspective here. So I am a real estate investor and developer on the north side, but also an active volunteer in the community, and have been a member of St. Paul's United Church of Christ in Lincoln Park. So in May, the church decided that we needed to step up and do something. So I'll give you a little bit of perspective in terms of how we just took it, from square one to say, what can we do to house some families? And part of our experience, I think, is to communicate to others, and to, as a real estate professional, to communicate to other landlords that participating in these types of programs and renting apartments that are in your portfolio to some of the recent migrant families is, not as Greg said, feel like you're doing a good thing, but I think it's good business as well. You'll have good, solid, dedicated tenants, people who want to work, people who want to be part of the Chicago community, and will be good tenants, not just for the period in which they're getting the subsidized or the rent support, but hopefully with the work permits that they're getting able to pay the rent on their own as well. At the end of May, the church decided that we would take in 4 families. We went to a police precinct and really started from scratch and met 4 families that all of them had children or were expecting children as well. We had some donated stage sets from Steppenwolf Theater, and our crew of handy people built out 4 rooms in the basement. Our goal was to house them by June 1st, so that was within 5 days. And we did that, and the commitment of the church was to house them in the church for 3 months and then find them permanent housing in apartments with it by September 1. So I'll quickly say that, through all private donations and private volunteers and church member volunteers who welcomed these people and provided them the support that they needed around them, whether it was food, helping them with some job referrals, some budgeting work, working with the Faith Community Initiative, the Resurrection Group, and also with the Sanctuary Working Group, we were able to really wrap around the level of support that they needed. That come September 1, we found 4 apartments in Humboldt Park, negotiated 12-month leases, again, provided a rental support structure with a sliding scale rental support for a 12-month period where we paid the first 3 months 100% and then started scaling that down. I'm happy to say that today is December 1st, and as of yesterday, all of the families have already made their rent payments for their 50% that we have set up under this agreement. So dealing with private landlords, dealing with private donations, setting this up for success is a great way to go about doing it. We'd like to find out ways we can continue to leverage some of our experience and our lessons learned, that we can work with other private landlords, and maybe even supplement some of the other support, whether it's the ASERAP program or Catholic Charities or others, along with some of our private donations as well. So I would just say that from a real estate investor and developer's perspective, this can be good business. You'll have good tenants, good, hardworking, dedicated future citizens of the city of Chicago, and we'd like to work with other churches as well, that they can maybe take some of the families out of the shelters, provide some temporary housing in the churches if possible, and then into the private housing. So that's our experience. A huge success. A lot of enthused volunteers and other people around, working to make this success, and we want to find out new ways to continue to help more people, because the need is still there.
Great, and I would just add to what David said. So the Sanctuary Working Group and the Faith Communities Initiative as well, which David is connected to, we do provide case management. So we do offer that support, and we, as part of the MacArthur grant, we are hiring our own case manager, our own housing specialist, and our own legal services coordinator. So we can have that support system for people as they become independent.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris, David, and Joe. That was really great to hear those firsthand experiences and hear more about the Sanctuary Working Group program. The last slide here is how to get involved with these two great programs. So if you are interested in getting involved with ASERAP, there's a landlord interest form that you fill out as the first step. If you're interested in getting involved with Sanctuary Working Group, you can email Chris directly. There's her email on the link. Or if you want to help us spread the word, which I ask everybody on this call to help us do, we have this call to landlords flyer that our amazing comms coordinator Audrey put together, that has all of the information from both of these great programs. So we will make sure that everybody who's registered for this call gets the flyer, also gets a link to this presentation and this recording. So please, I urge you to take action, get involved with one of these two amazing programs. So that is it for, it's all, everything we've prepared for you today, but we do have about 25 minutes left for Q&A. So I will open it up. If there are any questions from our guests who are on the call, you can just raise your hand and I will call on you. You can ask a question to one of our 4 landlords who joined us today, to any of our presenters. The Alderwoman is still here with us. So if you have a question, raise your hand and you will pop up on my screen. Can you drop the, oh, yes, I will stop share while we do Q&A. The first hand I see is Scott. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, so I'm looking at renting out my house, and I'm wondering if there's a lease, a boilerplate lease form that we could get access to. I'm starting from scratch. Would love to have something that would be appropriate for this kind of situation.
Hi, Scott, I can answer that. So what we do is either you opt for a formal lease yourself, or when you connect with one of our families, we can send them with a lease attestation form that would just basically say all the information that a lease would say.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm just looking for work. Could I get a boilerplate lease form?
Yeah, just to mitigate any sort of potential risk of fraud or anything like that. So we're keeping the forms in-house, but we can get you connected probably with Catholic Charities to say that you're interested. So we can send a couple families based on the need, and then we will send that form with those families.
Yeah, we've actually got I already have a family through the Ascension St. Edmund's Parish in Oak Park, which I assume is connected with Catholic Charities. They have a whole immigration ministry that I'm pretty sure. So I should maybe ask them to go back to Catholic Charities. Is that right?
I will just say that ASERAP is only for those that are in the 25 city shelters.
Got it. Yeah, these folks are actually, they live in the West Side. So they're currently in a shelter on the West Side.
If it's a city operated shelter, they are eligible. If it's not, if it's a private parish or a charitable shelter, that is not, they don't have access to the funding.
Yeah, they're in a city operated shelter. This would be a private arrangement.
Scott, I think, are you talking about the parish sponsorship model?
I think so. I'm not directly connected with them. I just met with somebody today from Ascension who's connected with it all. So
okay, yeah. So that's a good point. I think Catholic Charities has many programs. So we have a parish sponsorship model that's similar to what the Sanctuary Working Group does. This project and our team is working with DHS, and so this program specifically is just with ASERAP dollars. So if you're interested, we can definitely, I will make sure that I put my email in the chat and you can reach out. And there is, as Rodrigo mentioned, there's a lease attestation form that we use through that, DHS and IDA have prepared for us, and we can share that with you so you can use it for the ASERAP program. If you're working with the parish sponsorship program, you would want to use your own lease. And if you need support with that, that's maybe a separate question. We can help. I can try to find something for you separately.
I'm also wondering if David, because he's been working directly with landlords, if you have anything that you could offer Scott in terms of a lease template.
Yeah, I would say quick answer is no. And one of the things that we had was that we had to move pretty quickly and get our tenants in the apartments. And so the companies that we worked with all had, electronic leases, pretty standard. M. Fishman Company in Humboldt Park was one that leased 2 of them. So that was one of the challenges that we had, was having our families sign the leases directly, having to use DocuSign and go through that process. And so I would say a pretty standard, Chicago Area Association of Realtors lease would probably suffice.
Okay, thanks.
Zeke, go ahead.
Oh, you said Zeke?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. Hi. Maybe 2 questions. One, because the ASERAP program has reduced down from 6 to 3 months, one of the questions that I am asked about is what happened. Is there a supplemental program that could for the other 3 months? And the sanctuary one seems to be an option. Is that something that, I guess that once we have provided contact, I would like to present that to the property owners, that this is an incentive that it could fulfill either 6 months or longer. Can we share that with the as selling point for the selling for renters? That
yes,
they can be part of the ASRP and the sanctuary?
Yeah, so Zeke, we are 2 separate programs, and everybody who receives funding from the Sanctuary Working Group is on our list. So you could reach out to me. The people who are on our list are connected to one of the 44 either faith communities or nonprofits that make up the Sanctuary Working Group. So somebody reaches out to one of the 44 people, they talk about the specific family or individual in need, and then that person then becomes a part of our wait list. And anybody on our wait list then can possibly qualify as we get funding and we find rentals for people. But the ASAP program is separate. So we are, it could be a new model, but it isn't a current model where those things could be mixed. We just have the capacity. We understand that people need 6 to 12 months for the independence. And so that's what we continually fundraise towards.
I agree. I agree. The 3 months threshold is really the time that their families, the asylum families, need to adjust, looking for work, transportation, and we did see is that around the 3 month point they're stable and they're able to start saving money by the time they get to the 6th month, so they can continue their rental. The other question was the other gentleman about the lease template. I have a general one I could share with him. Doesn't have any proprietary information, but I'll have information in there for him. With, changing locks, maintenance, parking. I can share that with him. Again, there isn't any proprietary information in there. If he can provide his email or something, I can share that with him.
I'll put it in the chat.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And if I could add just one thing as well, this is David Brown. We've thought about this as well, especially in light of the 6 months going down to 3 months. And maybe a question that I have for Chris or anyone else on this call is, are there opportunities for us to do some private fundraising, perhaps reaching out to some suburban churches who at times I think feel helpless in light of the crisis that we have here? Can we raise some funds through some suburban churches or other donors that could specifically supplement the 3 month subsidy from Catholic Charities or with what the Sanctuary Working Group is doing, so that we're coming to landlords and saying, we have 9 months or more of rent support for this family, kind of really a full package, ready to go, that also has the case management support. So that's a question for anybody on here.
Yeah, I would say for the Sanctuary Working Group, that's a great question, David. And that is how we operate. It's word of mouth. And actually the MacArthur grant, they came to us because they heard about what we were doing. The Walder Foundation came to us. The Community Renewal Society was at a breakfast that we hosted in the spring to recruit new sponsors, and they came to us. The Faith Community Initiative that Emily is the program coordinator came out of that same breakfast. And so that kind of, my own neighbors in the 48th ward are raising money for rent through their friends, and it's designated rent. We have 2 apartments that have applied for through the Resurrection Project in the back of the yards, and that's designated rent for those people. So yeah, I mean, Catholic Charities, Nicole or whomever else can speak, but we absolutely receive donations specifically for rent. And we'd love to get, Joe is an example of a person in the 48th ward who has rented her unit to an asylum seeker. We'd love to find more people in the 48th ward as well, because as Nicole said, everybody who's found rental so far has been outside of the 48th ward.
Yeah, and just to be really clear, the funding through the ASERAP program isn't Catholic Charities funding. That's through DHS. Catholic Charities, the parish sponsorship model is exactly what you're talking about. That's also through private donations. And I think, yes, the thing about the current circumstance is that we are going to need all hands on deck. And when one funding stream decreases, then we want to pick it up in other streams. And I think that, if you look traditionally at how, like the community response for resettlement, it has been community members coming together and bringing their dollars and bringing themselves and supporting people one-on-one, like the Sanctuary Working Group does. And so I think absolutely we want to tap more people into that process.
Thank you. Shayna, hi.
Hi, Nicole. Thanks, everyone. I'm not sure if this is the right place to ask this question. We have I'm here as a landlord, I guess. We have a coach house in our backyard that had been vacant, and we got connected through the Sanctuary Working Group with a family. And so I think this is sort of the parish sponsorship model. We've got a church community in Evanston that pays us a small amount for utilities every month. The family has been with us now for about 6 months. And we have signed a lease with them for a full year. Their kids are enrolled at Pierce, our local school, which is great. I'm just wondering about, because this has been kind of I don't know, I feel really disconnected from like the bigger asylum seeker picture. And I'm understanding, I don't think we would qualify for ASERAP funding, which is fine because they're not out of one of the shelters currently. But in terms of like other services, like I'm hearing about New Life and case management and stuff like that, there's been a lot of things that we have been trying to help this family with. And it almost feels like we're kind of shortchanging them, because we get their kids enrolled in the school and they need healthcare and they need legal care. And there are all sorts of things that we're trying to figure out on the go. And I just wonder if there are better resources. And especially as we think about like, okay, in the next 6 months, we're hoping to transition them to be able to afford their own housing. Like, are there resources for helping connect them with housing? Like, what can I be aware of to better support them beyond just providing a house, but like having actual community welcoming resources? And we are in the 48th ward.
Right.
So,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, first of all, thank you so much. And I think the Illinois Welcoming Centers are a good place to start. Now, Chris, you might have additional resources that are more localized, but I know that in terms of extended case management or just access to, tapping into some of the traditional services or the other services that exist in Chicago, the way that we have been instructing folks to do it is through the welcoming centers. We know that they have funding to assist beyond sort of the initial placement. So that would be our recommendation. And my email, I dropped it in the chat. You can reach out to me and I can make sure that I connect you to a welcoming center that's close. But Chris, I'll pass it up to you. There might be other more localized resources that you'd recommend.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. What I would say is, so Shayna, your family came, the family in your coach house came through St. Nick's in Evanston, who is a member of the Sanctuary Working Group. And it was that entity that then connected with us. And we said, you know, we help facilitate. So we now, because we are hiring a case manager and a housing specialist, we and your family, that family already was on the Sanctuary Working Group list. You can reach out to me and we can talk about what other things might be able to happen moving forward.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's like I said, it's kind of like a weird specific case. And obviously over the course of 6 months, like we've done, we've managed to take care of a lot of things. But I feel like we're missing things and we're making things more complicated than they have to be. And so I would really love to just have more of a resource for us and for them as well. So thank you. I'll reach out.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Shayna.
I would like to just add that, you know, the compassion of individuals, be it Shayna and her family, Joe and her one unit, to the landlords, you know, to people like David, whose community took on 4 families and worked with landlords, to you know, the other landlords on this call with larger units. It takes a village, and it's one person and one landlord at a time. And it's the compassion for the new arrivals that we're welcoming. So I am very grateful for this collective and everyone else doing the work.
Thanks, Chris. I agree. Zeke, you have your hand up. Did you have another question, or was that from the last question?
Yeah, actually, I did have another question regarding my understanding with the ASERP program, the contingencies, the asylum seeker needs to be in the refuge center to start the process. Is there contingencies with the sanctuary? Because I do meet families outside of the refuge center. They were maybe in a shelter or police station and now they're longer in a shelter program. So is there, I mean, we want to help them, but is there any contingency that needs to be met before they can participate?
I'm sorry, Zeke, is that a question for the Sanctuary Working Group?
Yes.
Yes, so you can reach out to me. Again, anybody who we are working with in support of comes through somebody within the Sanctuary Working Group who takes kind of is a point person responsible for that family or that individual. So you could feel free to reach out to me and we can talk.
Thank you.
And I think the part of the question, if I'm understanding right, Zeke, was we know the ASERAP program, to qualify for that, you have to be currently in a city shelter. Is there any sort of qualifier like that for the Sanctuary Working Group, or will you take folks who are staying in police stations?
There's no qualifier. Yeah, people in police stations, people in shelters. That's only been in the last year. Before that, we have a lot of people arriving from the border. A lot of people who are working with communities along the border, they come directly through us from the border. So we work with a lot of people from the African diaspora as well.
Go ahead, Zeke. Did you still have your hand up?
I'm done. Yeah, let me take it out.
Oh, okay. Emily.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Wheeler. I am the program manager for the Faith Community Initiative. Chris had mentioned me a little bit earlier, and I just wanted to speak a little bit to Zeke's question as well, with an example of our organization and kind of how we do things, and how we would like to connect with landlords. The example is specifically Edgewater Mutual Aid had reached out to us with an urgent ask about a family of 6 that had just lost their housing that they were working on. They were staying at the Broadway Armory and they were all ready to sign a lease with their ASERAP funds, but unfortunately, due to some of the rules of the shelter having to do with childcare, they had to be kicked out of the Broadway Armory and needed a place to stay. So we teamed up with the Sanctuary Working Group to provide them temporary housing until we could get them into what my organization does, which is we partner with faith communities. And, you know, like David was saying, we help with case management. We do a lot of the work to help faith communities get ready to house people in their actual buildings for a year. And during that year, we really work on a lot of the pieces that have been mentioned here already, which is independence, financial stability, all of those pieces, the legal parts. And then once that year of support has concluded, that is the point where we start to reach out to landlords, and we are, always in need of people, especially on the north side. We have a family that is moving into an apartment this weekend, and unfortunately, they are going to have to move schools because they could not find an apartment close enough to the school that they had been attending that was in their price point. So we are completely different than what has been mentioned here already, but I just wanted to reach out to say, even if you're not working with the ASERAP funds, even if you're not working with the sponsorship model of, external funds to support families, there are still families that are looking for apartments, and they might be people who don't necessarily have extensive credit histories. They might be people who don't necessarily have a lot of the things that normal tenants can go through in terms of the checks and balances that are done by landlords. And so I just wanted to encourage people on this call who might be listening now or later, that the larger ask here is openness, and also to kind of work against the fear that a lot of people that I have heard from are hesitant to rent to new arrivals because of a lot of things that have been told to them, or they've heard horror stories from different parts. But a huge piece of stability long term for people is to be able to get into neighborhoods where they are familiar with the schools and the places around that they rely on for support. And so one of the huge game changers for people would be to be able to access housing in welcoming buildings or welcoming units with landlords that kind of understand where they're coming from. So to conclude the example that I was using about the family that was out of the shelter, we're moving them into a church up on Granville Avenue here in the 48th Ward today. Actually, in a couple hours, I'm going to go pick them up and move them into that church. So we're very excited, and they're going to be living there for the next year. And then hopefully we'll get them into an apartment after that.
Fantastic. Well, I want to be respectful of everyone's time and wrap up. We've got about 3 minutes left. We would love to get a screenshot photo of everybody if folks are willing to put on their cameras and wave for a quick photo. But I will hand it over to the alderwoman to kind of close us out. But I just also want to say personally, thank you all so much for being here and for doing what you do. And these testimonials were really, really touching. And thank you all. Alderwoman.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Emily, for sharing all that you're doing. And to your point, it really does take people's willingness to open up their minds and their homes and their networks and resources, because there is enough for everybody. And we believe that in the 48th Ward. We believe that in Chicago, and we know that as a state. So we're going to continue working, moving forward, and building this community that we all deserve to live in. So thank you all again. And I know that some of us couldn't stay until the end. So I just wanted to say thank you to those presenters who came earlier. And I'll pass it now to Audrey.
Okay, we're gonna take a photo. I'm just gonna take a screenshot on my laptop, so I'll count down. Everyone say cheese. 3, 2, 1. Okay, let me make sure I actually got it. 1 sec. Yep, we're good.
Great.
Thank
Well,
you,
thank you for your
everyone.
time, everybody. Have a great rest of your day and a great weekend.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.